Western culture is completely morally bankrupt. People are degenerating at an alarming rate, and this guy here seems to think that soft parenting is the key to bringing us back here. We're too hard on kids. That's what he thinks. We're too hard on our kids today, and that's why they're not turning out like we wanted to. That's why we see all this crap that's going on, this selfishness. So let's have a look. Let's hear what this guy has to say, and I'll give you my thoughts.
Some parents definitely treat their kids like dogs. Come here, stop that, lay down, go to sleep, calm down, go, stay, roll over, bark. And I don't think it's great. Shocker, I know. This just in, man suggests being kind to children. Adler
Yeah, I think this is our first problem here is that he's assuming that it's unkind to lead your family. When you have a boss, if you have a supervisor, if you have a captain of a team who has more experience and more skill, more knowledge, he's not ruling tyrannical dominion over everyone. He has the experience and he wants you to succeed. He wants everybody to succeed. We're a unit here. We all need to get together here. And this is I'm calling the plays and we're going to run the plays and we're going to be successful here. It's actually an act of kindness to give somebody critique, give somebody advice, and help shape them. That's actually kind. We're letting somebody just go on a road to ruin and do whatever they want, just, do whatever impulse comes into their head. That's actually an act, not an act of kindness. That's actually destroying the person. That's something that we've forgotten in the West, but we need to bring it back ASAP.
Theory in psychology has this idea that the way we treat people isn't an accident. When we are rude or disrespectful, it's because on some level we've allowed ourselves to be. And that's what I don't like about the way many parents talk to their kids. Because when we talk down to kids in ways we'd never talk to another adult, it reveals something. On some level, we think it's okay.
We don't talk to other adults that way, especially, adults, friends and stuff that are close to us that way because we're not responsible for them. And you have to maintain there's an authority that has to come out in your tone, has to come out in your actions, the way you carry yourself, in its leadership. And this is the way that things are going to go. And if you start trying to talk evenly across with children or anybody, even in a job or occupation, you'll find that things start to run worse. There's a reason why for thousands of years this has worked. And the more that we try to talk straight across to our children and act like we're friends or we're equals in all says are the same. You're going to come to your kid for marriage advice. You're going to come to your 3-year-old for if you should get a promote. Which job you should take at work. Should you take the promotion or the more that you're going to see an absolute breakdown of society here. And this is just more of that same crap.
I think our culture often sees kids as lesser. We talk
It's not just our culture, it's every culture to ever exist. And it's not that they're lesser, it's that there's a balance. They're the top, everything that you're in the hierarchy here, everything that's being built, all the work that's being done, all the sacrifices that are made are for them, but but everything's balanced. So then when you look at who has the most say, because they're at the bottom here, because everything is being funneled down to them. It would be completely uneven if they had all the say and were getting all the resources and not doing any of the work. So everything actually works itself out really. The natural order of things actually is really fair.
talk about men and women being equal, people from different countries being equal, but kids, kids better move.
And I'm not going to pause it every 3 seconds here, but he actually brought up a good point right there, saying that um, that when you start to look at society as like if you accept the narrative that what if you look back through history, what happened was that men took the upper hand against women and basically ruled powerful dominion over them. Just like you'll do what I say, which is not at all actually what happened. What actually happened was people worked together really. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. If people didn't work together, we would not be here 100%. And it actually takes away from a lot of the things that women did in society, just to say that men were just like cracking a whip over top of them. When actually what most men were doing were sacrificing, breaking their backs. I think the Bible says from the sweat of your brow, you'll labor. And we gave it everything we had to protect, and we died for our families. And, men gave a lot. So, and we completely rewrite that narrative today because it's, I guess ideologically convenient. But if you accept that narrative, then the problem is you can very easily move that same narrative to mothers, even mothers and their children. You can say, well, the reason why mothers are actually taking advantage of their children. They're manipulating them. They're ruling over the top of them with an iron fist. And it's not because they're, killing themselves to keep their children alive. They're actually this, malevolent figure in their lives that is just it's about power and, It's a really disgusting way of looking at the world, but once you start going down this path, and it's super widely accepted now, the feminist and ideological lens, and it's not accurate at all.
Time doing literally everything. Their first time being embarrassed, being disappointed, their first time with responsibility. It definitely feels like parents are applying their own perspective of having had this experience hundreds of
It's called
times, and their
parenting,
kids
yes.
should know better. No,
It's your job to
everything
make
is
them know
new,
better.
and they're obviously not going to handle it all perfectly the first time. Instead of shame and judgment, we should be navigating them through it. I think we can be pretty
Shame and judgment. I know today we hate the idea of shaming and judging people, but shame and judgment can actually be super useful tools to help people navigate. I know that we don't like to feel bad, and we kind of have this thing in society now where it's like you can do whatever you want as long as you don't say anything when I do what I want. It's kind of this, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, moral degeneration, and it's completely unacceptable. And we're going to have standards and right and wrong. It's what built the West, and as we've got rid of those the last 60 years, those traditional norms, everything is deteriorating, and I think that that's 100%. I mean, if you sat out with a pen and paper 60 years ago of how to make society fall apart, I don't think you could come up with a better system than what we've done. I'm not going to say intentionally, but on accident, even it doesn't matter. I mean, it's a distinction without a difference.
pretty condescending when we correct kids. I was at the playground the other day when there was a dad and his daughter and his dog. They were friendly, really great. Well, his daughter starts playing with the dog, I think to show off for my daughter, and the dad corrects her. Ugh, you're going to get him all worked up. Come on. The daughter obviously felt super embarrassed. Why are we doing that? Would the dad have said that to a friend of his? Or would he have been like,
Like I said, it's not his responsibility to tell his friends, how to act. It is your responsibility to develop your children. And there is a certain attitude and way of acting that does that. I think that's a lot of this stuff is obvious. We've known it since the dawn of time. Is a lot of it's instinctual, and we work against a lot of these parental instincts. I think to our detriment.
oh, hey, I think that'll rile him up? But for our own kids, screw tone, screw respect. It doesn't matter if the kid should have known better or any other argument. We are all deserving of respect, even
I don't agree with that either. That's another thing that we seem to have forgotten in the West is that respect isn't just automatically given to people. I don't just meet a stranger on the street and just respect them automatically. There is a certain amount of dignity that's given to people. Try to give people the benefit of the doubt the best that you can, but you only respect people who are respectful. I mean, in my day to day life, there's a very small handful of people that I would say that I actually respect. I don't interact with that many people throughout my day, but just giving people respect off the rip is just that's just crazy. Yeah, you don't respect people that aren't worthy of respect. That's a road to ruin.
even kids, and it's not something you pick and choose when to dole out.
Yes, it is.
I feel like the goal for correction should be ensuring the child never feels small or foolish. And
That's not the goal of correction. The goal of correction is to try to build your child into a responsible adult and not a burden on society. It's actually really interesting. I heard a child psychologist one time explain it as that you have a when you start with a toddler, you start with a ring of responsibility, and it's very small, and everything outside of that ring is the land of no. And what you want to do is with kids as they grow is that you make that ring bigger and bigger and bigger, and so you're giving them you're letting a little bit more yes in, and then if they make a mistake, it kind of constricts back in. But the idea is that by the time that they're an adolescent, a young adult, that you've let them handle a lot of the weight of the world, and you don't want to keep responsibility super small because that destroys them, and you don't want to just open it up and let kids do whatever they want because that destroys. So that's a really I thought always thought that was a really interesting way of putting it.
I want to ask all you parents something. How many of you feel the eyes of other parents around you just watching you and judging you while you interact with your kids? I feel like I can see it in parents' eyes at a party when they're trying to get their kids to act perfectly, or you're at a grocery store and your kids are throwing a tantrum and they're feeling so embarrassed that this is happening. Honestly, shut all of that stuff out.
Yeah, that reminds me of that Louis C.K. joke.
Yeah.
It's 100% true that that as a parent, when your kids are well behaved and you've been, being making sure doing everything that you're supposed to do to make sure that your kids are being productive and they're not, the burden on the friend group, and that they do, they follow the rules and they're respectful and all that kind of thing. That when you see kids that aren't, they're completely out of control, you look at that parent and it's like, you weak piece of crap. Like, your kid is a terror. This is you. It's not the kid. It's you. It's your responsibility. If you when I would see sometimes that, like, parents would be complaining about their kids, because my kids have friends and stuff, and they're some of the parents would be like complaining about their kids, and the kids would go to somebody else's house and behave perfectly, or go to school and they do the thing, but when they come home, they're a nightmare. It's like, that's not the kid. That's you, buddy. That's you. It's your responsibility.
It genuinely doesn't matter what these other people are thinking. The only thing that matters is what your child is going through right now. Criticizing and embarrassing your kid at a party, trying to get them on their best behavior, it doesn't help anything. It just makes them miserable. What's more important, them having a good time, feeling comfortable at a gathering, or being on like some kind of perfect behavior?
There's another false dichotomy there, that it's only either or, but there's a lot of wiggle room in between just doing whatever they want, and this, whatever this is here, some kind of totalitarian state or something. But yeah, I think this is just a mistake here. Yeah, I think a lot of the problem that what we have today is that we have a really hard time setting a hierarchy of values. We don't like saying that one thing is better than another for whatever reason. I think that it's a lot of this postmodernist nonsense would be a big part of it. Kind of postmodernism is kind of like one thing is just as true as another. There's infinite ways of looking at the world, which is true. There, you can look at the world however you want, but there's not infinite correct or infinite useful ways of interpreting the world. And for some reason in the West, we pretend like we don't understand that when we completely do. Um, but when you look at the world that way, you have a hard time setting your values. Like truth, I'd say, is at the top of every. That's kind of the Western philosophy, that you put truth at the top of basically all hierarchies of values. But he's just putting like kindness at the top, or whatever, and we're learning more and more. We're getting a better example of this every day. Why you don't put kindness at the top of your hierarchy over top of things like truth and discipline and things like that. And I think he's also making the mistake of thinking that being disciplined or disciplining your children is going to make them somehow less free. There was a book that I read a few years ago called "Discipline Equals Freedom." I can't remember the guy's name that wrote it. He's a super famous guy though, but he makes a great case anecdotally and scientifically, statistically, that when the people that are better at disciplining themselves, doing the things that they're supposed to, they also are often the people that end up with the most freedom and ability to do what they want. And the people that are slaves to their impulses and can't control themselves, their lives are typically, they're boxed in by their bad decisions and they can't move or breathe. So that's a really interesting way of looking at the world, and I think it's correct.
And what are they going to remember? They're not going to remember the party. They're just going to remember how you made them feel uncomfortable. And the meltdown goes so much easier when you can block out all the noise and just be present with your kid. Oh, and side note, it always blows my mind when a parent loses it over their kid's meltdown. And it's like, you're not being emotionally regulated either. Why is it not okay for them to be emotionally regulated, but then you freak out and get irritated and your emotions all over the place, but like that's okay?
That's funny. But I'll say this. My dad had a saying, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard this: "Do as I say, not as I do." My dad lived by that. I live by that with my children. I mean, it's just the truth. You don't have the responsibility, that you're not developed enough. You haven't paid your dues. You haven't earned the ability to do these things like I have. And it's just the way that it is. And I'm not saying that you should blow up at your kids or anything, in anger, but I think often that's a consequence of letting your kids get by with too much. If you're angry when you start the interaction, the odds are that that's because you've let this go too far. If you would have said something way sooner, you wouldn't be angry. So I think that, once again, I think the solution is actually more discipline, not less.
You're asking them to be calm while you are not being calm either. It makes no sense. Like the parent yelling, "Stop yelling!" You're literally yelling to tell them to stop yelling, and then you wonder why they yell so much. I feel like parents complain about their kids being loud and impulsive and not knowing social norms. And it's like, yeah, they weren't born knowing social norms. They must have missed the social norms pamphlet being handed out in the birth canal. It's your job to instruct them in these.
Exactly, and nobody's disputing that. I think what the dispute is how. What's the most effective way? What's the moral way? And what's the just what has the best outcomes? And I think basically all of the literature would land more on my outlook, the traditional way of parenting.
These things, and you have a choice. You can be a calm, patient parent, or you can be a frustrated, embarrassed one.
Well, I'm
Think
glad we
about when
only
you
get
were a
2
kid, when you
choices.
were
That's
scared because
nice.
you did something wrong and you didn't know what was going to happen. Remember that powerless feeling you had as a kid? Yeah, it's super vulnerable. Live in that feeling for 5 seconds before you talk to your kid about that mistake they made. Because most of the time, they feel like crap and you don't need to add to it. There's so many things I could bring up, like how the cashier at the grocery store gets patience and the waiter gets patience. But then our kids do something and it's bam, no.
Has this guy been out in public recently? You can't interact with anybody without being disrespected. You see people get shot for getting the wrong taco at Taco Bell. There's that thing where that kid put his hand on somebody and got stabbed in the heart. Stuff is crazy. People think that they're entitled to live a life without any kind of minor inconvenience, or they will kill you or blow up, burn the buildings down. And a lot of that comes from stuff like this. Single parent homes are a huge problem. The literature on that is crystal clear. We know what happens. And removing men from the household was a complete detriment to society. I think that's it's undeniable at this point. And this is more of the feminine way of looking at the world, and it is destroying us. I mean, we have this obsession with believing things that we wish were true. I wish people were interchangeable widgets and you could just take this person, this woman, and switch it with a dad, and everything would just work out. But the reality is that's not true. And the more that we live in a false narrative, the more that society is going to be destroyed. And we have to get off this road. We have to. It's time. We're way past the point. We're able to stop and take stakes of where we're at. It's fucking crazy. We got to stop. It's done. It's done.
No patience. Like, I'm not saying parenting is easy, it's the hardest thing, but they deserve better. Oh, and how we talk about kids as if they're not standing right there. We'll talk about their weaknesses, their struggles, embarrassing
I'll give him a
moments,
little bit there. That's
just
true. I
all
don't
of it
think you
right
should
in
do
front of
that.
them. That's not that can't be
You should
good. I'm
keep it
pretty sure
between
any
you.
of us would
I
hate
agree.
that. At least for Americans, we're rushing through life from one thing to the next, and one thing we can do when it comes to our kids is slow down. When our toddler is having fun in the shopping cart at the store and they don't want to leave, it's nice to be able to take 5 minutes to walk around the store again. So much of the conflict we have with toddlers is just unnecessary. I want to crack eggs. Let them do it and clean up the mess together. They
I agree. I think there's a time for doing that 100%. I think that that's a as parents you always end up feeling guilty, especially when you start having more 2, 3 kids. It becomes very difficult to split your time. It's like I heard somebody say one time that once you have your third kid, you kind of give up because it's like there's just no way there's going to be enough time for them. There's not enough hours in the day to give them all the time and attention that they need. But yeah, there's some truth in this, but also there's a time and place, and that's one of the other things that you're teaching as a parent is there's a time and place, and that it's not just goof around time, 24 hours a day. It's just not.
learn how to crack eggs and they get to learn how to clean. I want to play in the sink and rinse like 20 different measuring cups and utensils. Let them do it.
There's a time for it, and also, like I said earlier, I think the more that your children are disciplined, they'll be able to handle everything else. All the pieces are going to start coming together. They're going to be able to handle things like this much better. You won't have freaking out, misbehaviors, and everything won't be a problem. What happens if you let a lot of children have too much freedom is they start to make everything extremely difficult. Even brushing their teeth is difficult. Putting them to sleep is difficult. Eating their dinner is difficult. Even playing with their toys is difficult. Everything will be a problem, and you really have to nip that in the bud as soon as it starts.
They are not trying to make you miserable. They are trying to be curious and
Some
explore
kids
their
will try
world.
to make
And
you
for the
miserable. They
situations
will.
when, yeah, it's time for bed and they just do not want to do it, instead of annoyance and frustration, you can be calm and empathetic as you lead them to it.
I
What I
think
would
that being
encourage
calm is
parents to
good.
do right now is to change that internal compass that guides how you treat your kids. You know how with your spouse in your mind, there are things you just won't do? You refuse to like hit them or slap them no matter what.
Yeah, I don't think making changes is a lot more difficult than just changing something in your mind. We wouldn't need psychology or any of the humanities if we understood ourselves well enough to be in control of ourselves like that. You know, you don't see a drug addict go, "I'm just done taking drugs," or somebody that's overweight just being like, "I'm done eating," or even, people motivating themselves to quit watching a show or, quit doing any kind of behavior. It's very difficult for people. We actually have a pretty minuscule control of ourselves, and it takes years of practice. So, I get his point here, but it's just not as easy as that, certainly not.
It just isn't an option in your brain. So with your kids, maybe in the past it was okay to snap at them. Maybe you've just had it up to here. Maybe you didn't check your tone because they should know better. Change it so that you don't snap at them, no matter how you feel. You don't yell or mock them or whatever it is you are thinking of right now.
Like I said earlier, I think the more discipline that you put on your children early on in stopping these behaviors, and you gotta start today. If people have kids that are out of control, you have to start now, because every day it gets worse. It's, like, exponentially worse. So, and I think you'll have a lot less of these emotional outbursts and things. I maintain pretty cool with my kids, and it's not that big of a problem, and my kids are relatively well behaved.
If it helps, bring them up to the level that you treat your spouse. Unless you snap at them too, then we should bring both of those up a bit. I hope everyone found this helpful and interesting. Please like the video and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to hear more about whatever it is I'm thinking of,
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting take. I'm glad to know that things like this are out there and that people feel this way, but the West is falling apart. I mean, it's completely deteriorating, and it all starts somewhere. It all starts at the home. This is just one example. We're going to have a million more, but this is a problem, and we can't just keep going down this over feminized, oversimplified way of doing things when the traditions are traditions for a reason. They've been around for thousands of years and they worked. All these new concepts of things, we're only just now starting to see the consequences of how horrible they are. Well, thanks for watching the video. Like and subscribe if you want. There's going to be plenty more content like this. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.